What is up, everybody? Welcome to Omnic Lab 120. This week is the one that I have been waiting for personally for quite a long time. Our good friend from Canada, KarQ Games, is here to help us talk about Ana in a revisited, revised, specially sleep darted for you episode for Ana. And joining me, as always, is Andres from Atlanta. Andres, KarQ, welcome back to the show for both of you, actually. This is KarQ's second time back here.
Yep. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited
And,
about this episode.
He's gotten his little newbies out because now he's full-fledged into the second stage of the Overwatch World Cup with the Team Canada, right?
Exactly. I've evolved. I've made another step in the Overwatch community and my personal career, and I've been part of the World Cup, and it's been quite an experience. I've actually learned a lot being part of the Team Canada scrims. Obviously, like I just make content and stream, but I actually haven't been part of a proper team. I haven't really watched any scrims. I haven't really played in any scrims, and then just watching, the big players, Sure4 Agilities, all the Overwatch League players or former Overwatch League players and contenders all playing together, the way they communicate, the way they just their cohesion and the way they execute stuff together was just quite a sight to see. And I feel like I've evolved as a player and learned so much from them in the limited time I've been with them. So I'm excited to share what I've picked up along with some tips and tricks on Ana. And yeah, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Well, how about you tell us a little bit what you've been doing for Team Canada for those of you who don't know?
So I was nominated as Team Canada's community lead, voted by the community. I may or may not have won it because of popular vote, because of the channel. But hey,
hey man,
I feel like I'm qualified for the job.
Yeah, that's your investment paying off. Your hard work paying off right there.
Yeah, for the stuff I've worked on for the community in terms of other content, whatever.
Absolutely.
I'm here. I made it, and I've been doing my best to be a good community lead. And the funny thing about being community lead is that there's no job description or any sort of rules that any community lead has to follow or abide. I mean, besides obviously Blizzard rules, but there's no, you know what I mean? There's no you must do this and this for your team. Every country's community lead does something different to provide value for them. Whether people define it as social media or making video content. So it's been a challenge finding a perfect balance in what I could offer to the team in terms of my skill set. And I think I can do the social media stuff and the marketing stuff, promoting the team. I think that's fine. But I think the additional value that I can provide is that I do play the game, almost a lot every day. I make content. I do analyze some stuff. I do have a pretty good understanding of it. I'm relatively high ranked, so I could provide value during scrims and offer my input on little things that I've noticed as well, because I have that eye, and maybe some other communities may not have that kind of benefit. So I feel like it's been awesome that I've been able to provide value in that sense, in addition to all the other things that I've been doing, which is, again, social media and just promoting the team and spending time with them and making sure we come out on top in every category possible, besides just winning, Got to win the fans' hearts too.
That is very true. Unfortunately, you have a very good team to win hearts. Everyone in that team is such a good person.
Exactly. Yeah, we got a lot of big personalities on the team. I do think by sheer popularity, I think we do have some of the biggest names and some of the most popular players. So I think we do win by default a little bit in that category. But hey, I'm not complaining. Yeah, so that's been the World Cup so far in that sense.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, before we get some more info here, let's jump over to some of our content with regards to announcements, our game nights, our sponsors. Just real quick, we'll get this out of the way, and then we'll get right back into the Ana Guide. And then at the end of the show, because we know you guys are here for the Ana Guide, at the end of the show, we'll talk a lot more about kind of the intricacies within kind of Overwatch World Cup, maybe some things that KarQ is allowed to talk about. Obviously, we're probably not going to be touching on the strategic things because they are saving a lot of those things.
You don't want to reveal your secrets to South Korea.
So what we can do is we can talk about kind of environment and all of those type of things, but we'll let you know when we get there. Okay, we'll get there. It'll happen. But before we do, we want to announce. Remember, guys, that game night is on every Friday at the end of the month. So this is the last Friday of every month. We have game night, and so it's no different. Actually, if you're on the live stream, it is tonight. And if you're listening to this episode, it's probably after the fact. So we hope you had a great time. We're going to be a little short on our moderating, like our actual mods and admin. So I will be running one of the lobbies like good old days. And we have a couple other people that are volunteering to help run the lobbies. We're going to be running a little bit different. Last time we used a client. And so what this time is we're basically letting each of the leads use that client if they want to, or we can just do more of like classic schoolyard picking rules with captains. And then we kind of have people that didn't play that previous game are automatically priority, and they have to be picked for the next game is kind of how we run the game nights. And it's not required that you get picked based off your skill. Just whatever who you want to play with, you play with them. Games sometimes are unbalanced, sometimes they are. Just how it works. As you kind of stay in a lobby, the longer you play, the more you get to know the people there. The longer they stay, the better fine-tuned and even the games get. But it's a little rocky when things start off, so be a little patient with it. Some people get a little frustrated pretty early, especially with being a new face. So that's kind of how we run the game nights. Next up, we have our sponsor, Top Score Solutions. Ben, aka I Need Peeling, is offering free business consultation within esports. So if you guys are looking to be kind of like coaching fields, starting teams, developing apps, services, boosting subscriber base, want to work in esports, or do you even just have like some general broad questions, this is a great resource at your fingertips at topscoresolutions.com, Top Score Esports on Twitter. And they have a Discord. Just find I Need Peeling in Discord, and you can do it there. And also, I just got word from our good friend Switch that he just booked his hotel room, and he will also be at doing some hangout stuff with me and Andres from Omnic Meta. He will be representing Omnic Meta at BlizzCon, and I believe he'll also be at the panel World of Podcast on Thursday night. I don't know if he'll stay awake for the Overwatch one because it is the last one there, but yeah, he'll be there. And just a reminder that he does have a player stats website that Andres and I touched on briefly last week that is now live and open for everyone outside of beta and alpha testers. So you guys can go test it out. Similar to Overbuff, but it's a little bit more contoured for players that are using it for ladder or monitoring individual sessions, and also very specific categories of your play and not just the general broad brush, like what are all of my stats? I want to see them all. This is like a little bit more focused. And then last, Andres, you want to talk a little bit about our partnership with Humble Bundle to close us out here on the sponsors?
Yeah, sure thing. Like we've mentioned in previous episodes, we've partnered with Humble Bundle this month for their super awesome bundle that includes Overwatch for only $12. If you sign up for this month, you can get Overwatch immediately for just $12. So if you don't want to get that third account or fourth account, for some of you is the second if you just started joining Overwatch. But you can always make that Symmetra only account. Now's your chance for only $12.
Oh no.
Or your brand new Torb accounts that are coming out in the next PTR
Hey,
cycle.
there you go. Torb rework.
Now
the perfect chance to do that Torb one trick if you've always been wanting to. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that at home, kids. But if you do want Overwatch for 12, please go to humblebundle.com/monthly partner equals Omnic Lab. And the link will be on our social media. It'll be on Discord. We'll make sure to post it with the show notes so you guys have access to that. But it helps the show, and you can get something cool out of it.
And we have a command in our chat and Twitch and in our Discord. If you just type !humble, you can grab the link. It's a lot easier. All right, KarQ. This is let's give the people what they want.
Okay. The juice.
The juice, as XQC always says, right?
Right.
I'm sure you've heard that a fair amount in scrims.
Yeah.
Let's start with some Ana basics. If somebody was jumping into the hero, maybe they're not super familiar with it, but you had to tell them, like, listen, this is what you need to watch out for. This is what you need to groom yourself to be. What would you consider the Ana basics of the game?
The Ana basics of the game. Oof. It's hard to generalize, like, simply put, but I guess
let's start with what she brings to the team. What are her strengths? Why would you choose her over other healers, for example?
Well, right now, first and foremost, the buff to Ana and the nerf to Mercy really solidified her as the primary healer choice in the current meta. It's been a long time coming. I mean, Mercy was meta for a full year, I think. But finally, Ana's made a little comeback. The Nano Boost buff has been what's definitely set her back into the meta, along with the Mercy nerfs. Like I just said, the nano buff acts like a pseudo resurrection. You can save someone before they die these days. You can protect them as a defensive alt against big bursts. Like, for example, if a squishy hero gets stuck by a Tracer Pulse Bomb, you can actually nano them and then they'll live, right? Like 200
Yep.
HP soldier, even if he's down to 50 HP, you nano them, heals to 200, and now the Pulse Bomb will only do 150 to him because of that damage reduction. So it acts as a pseudo resurrection. And the nerf to Mercy, 10 HP per second, actually slows her Valkyrie charging time by like 16 to 18% or something like that mathematically. So a slower Valkyrie, slower overall healing from her, and it's put Anna back into the meta. So I'd say the meta has been nice to her, so that's also given her a nice head start. And then the first thing to prioritize on Anna is learning your healing priorities. And you know, it's a cop out answer, but
No,
aiming.
it's
I
important.
mean, aiming, I feel like is such a big part of her kit, right? Just being able to land the shots when they matter the most. And if you can't land your shots, then I mean, you might as well play Moira or Mercy or something like that, just to get more value, bring more value to your team. Like if you're whiffing everything, then you're really not doing much. So I'd say that's the bare bones basic. Try to have relatively, decent aim, to start off to get some value with her. And the meta's been kind, so starting off from there, that's where I'd go from.
Hmm.
And
So-
it's very true that she finally dethroned the most coveted healer in Overwatch, Mercy. Mercy's reign of terror has finally been ended by Anna, and now Anna's reign of terror is kind of coming out because man, is she really strong in this meta?
She is very strong, but that doesn't mean she's invincible right now. I do think she still has weaker survivability than Mercy, and I actually don't think Mercy's as bad as people say. My personal opinion, of course. Not to reveal anything for Team Canada, but we've experimented a little bit with her just to see how she plays. And my opinion, just on the surface level, she's fine on certain maps and certain comps. Just because she's not picked in every map, people are dismissing her right away, but she's still viable in certain situations. And I think people are just so used to the fact that she was picked in every game that, if she's not suddenly picked in every game, it feels like she's super weak. But I'll just say right now, don't dismiss her. Like Rez is still relatively powerful. Valkyrie's still a great ultimate. Certain comps, certain maps can use the Mercy for sure. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
I don't wanna,
that sounds
I don't
great.
wanna
No,
reveal
No,
very
that's
cool, very
fine.
cool.
That's fine. Well, we should cut you off before you go further.
yeah, before I accidentally say any more.
we have a. I'm just enjoying this. I'm like, maybe we have some scouts coming in the chat. No, I'm just kidding. We have a brief thing here, Andres. I think in the stream that the nameplates need to be slightly adjusted, and I'm not
yeah.
Jinx Ooh
my bad.
from last time. So
I'll take care of that
as
while
we
you guys
can-
continue.
yeah, as we're talking here, Andres will be fixing this for the live stream. For using the audios, use on the audios. Don't worry about it, okay? Now, Jinx, there's something that I learned a while
Jinx.
back. Or I'm just sorry. I'm looking at the stream and I'm watching my name
That's a little
change live, and I'm super distracted. All right. So, KarQ, when you're playing Ana, I had a tip from a friend of mine who was in, I think, Diamond Masters at the time. And
Right.
it changed a lot of the way that I was kind of hitting my targets with the shots, where he was saying when you're hitting people with shots, you kind of have this mental game where instead of really focusing on getting somebody to 100% in high stress situations, if it's like a DPS or somebody that's like 250, 200 or like health range, just tapping them and then kind of like maintaining multiple targets that are low is a really good idea. But you kind of have that, like you said, you got to know your priorities, right? Can you talk a little bit more about maybe how you're tagging people in like in a really high stress environment, or when lots of people are low? How do you prioritize? Like what are some of the things we've talked about this every time healers are brought up, because this is like the most core thing to playing a support hero.
Yeah, and your friend that mentioned that, I 100% agree. That is actually how my playstyle is wrapped around for Ana as well. Definitely a big part of playing Ana is, you usually in the backline, you kind of get a sense of where your entire team is and being able to see where everybody is and tapping them and making sure each hero isn't critical, and sometimes just landing one shot on them, then switching to another teammate that needs healing at the same time is a big part of playing her effectively. Managing your team's HP pools. Like, for example, like you mentioned, if a tank's still at like 250 HP, or no, like 200 HP, it might say critical. I forgot when the game UI tells you they're critical. Is it maybe like
Yeah.
30% or 20%?
It's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's somewhere below 50%.
It's between
Yeah, so-
20 and 50, I believe. That's somewhere in that range.
Right. So if they're in that range, it'll say critical on your screen, but then like in the grand scheme of things, they still have like maybe 100, 200 health, right? And unless they're being focused, maybe they're Reinhardt, they're still holding their shield up, they can survive a little bit longer than maybe your Genji that's dashing in the air yelling, "I need healing," and he's actually at like 20 HP. So
sometimes they actually do need healing.
yeah, believe it or not, sometimes they do. Not even the 198 out of 200, and they're like spamming, "I need healing, I need healing." But being able to understand that in high stress environments and seeing, okay, this person it does say critical on my screen, and as tempted as you are to heal them, the other person that's also critical on the screen, based on like absolute HP values, they need the healing first. And I don't like telling people like who should I heal first in every situation, because every situation is actually different, right? Maybe the Genji is safe behind line of sight. Maybe my Reinhardt is critical as well. Maybe they both critical. Reinhardt does have a lot more HP, but he's actually being focused at this current time. So it's hard to actually tell you exactly who to heal in certain situations.
Well,
I guess
it's all a matter of awareness, I guess, what you're saying, right? Like being aware of where they're positioned, if they're in immediate danger, what the enemy team might be doing at the time, who their focus is. And it requires you paying attention to a lot of details of the battlefield. And I think really good Annas get really good at having this intuition, this motherly intuition of like, who needs my help right now, right? Who should I focus? And same with their positioning, right? Positioning in a way that allows you to provide that healing, right? That allows you to get that clutch heal on the Genji while keeping an eye on your Reinhardt while still not being super exposed yourself. Do you want to speak a little bit to that? Because I feel Ana positioning is very tricky for a beginner.
It's kind of hard to kind of put it in words, because like at this point now I do it so automatically, it's so second nature to me that sometimes I don't really give that much thought into why I'm moving where I am and who I'm healing. But if I had to really generalize it, positioning wise changes depending on who's alive on the enemy team. Or if you guys have the numbers advantage, you can generally move up with your team, especially if they're starting to go aggressive. I don't want to say you should be in a fixed position at all times, or like you should always play in this back line, because sometimes it's better to move up with the team. General rule of thumb, if your team is winning and they're moving up, don't get too fixated on staying in the back. Like, for example, Volskaya Industries point B. A lot of Annas like to perch themselves up on that little high ground, just behind the point. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Over the little bridge, right?
As a defender?
Yeah, as a defender, exactly.
Yeah.
So when the team is winning and then they start like, pushing up, maybe past the choke a little bit, and they go behind the door, you suddenly can't heal them anymore. But when I watch some lower rank autos, and sometimes I even fall in the habit too, my team is winning, but I'm just really fixated on staying up there the entire time. And then as my team is pushing up, I'm just sitting there like, wait, I can't heal you guys. Should they come back, or should I move up to help them?
Right.
And I'd say, 8 times out of 10, it's probably better to move up temporarily to keep providing value and top them up as they press their advantage than to sit back.
Right.
And I've caught myself sitting back and just feeling useless for like 30 seconds. My team moving up. Like, oh crap! I should have moved up with them.
I know that this, like you said, this is 8 out of 10, 8 out of 10 times, which means that there are still times where it's inappropriate to head out.
Yeah.
And a lot of those typically will be around if the team is back capping you or attempting to do so, where they're basically using the man advantage as bait, or they have just like they're running a really fast comp like Winston's and Genjis and Tracers and even Pharah Mercy setup. Like they're just basically just lethal for you pretty much anywhere you're going to be. And so the safer you are, the better. And the way you push the man advantage should look differently depending on and should be informed by what the team compositions are. Now, disclaimer, this is something that increases in importance the higher you climb in the ladder, to the point that it becomes necessary at a very high rank. And almost after you go down from Grandmaster to Master, even into Diamond, the drop off in how useful that is with how much your team understands the game is just drastic.
That's true
So
too.
you have to keep that in mind too, because not only are they going to have higher level players, but they're also going to be like you, where they're not going to be perfect at executing.
Right.
Your team, the enemy team, and even yourself, you're not going to be at that level yet. So it's important to understand that even if it may be you making right decisions is good, you still need to kind of adjust to what your team is doing. So let's say that the decision is to push forward, and you're trying to encourage your team to do so, and they're just not doing it. Then you don't really need to do what the team's not doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree with that too.
So all right, not to belabor the point. So let's keep moving here. So with regards to positioning, how can we utilize things like the ebb and flow of offense? Because I found that Ana in general is a lot easier to play when your team is moving on defense just around and adjusting. But then when you play on offense, it complicates quite a bit of like how you need to position, where you need to be kind of helping them maneuver, because what happens is you start gaining that advantage slowly, slowly, especially on payload, right? And as you're gaining this advantage, you now need to adjust where you are. And if the enemy team is counter diving you or something like that, to give a few examples.
Right. So sorry, the question was like the ebb and flow of Ana.
How are you going to ebb and flow with regards to offense? Because we talked with defense, right?
Right. Okay. So a big part of not only playing Ana, I guess, but in general, just playing matchmaking, just because it's a team, it's just a random group of people every time. You have to adjust the play style to, I believe, how your main tank plays, because they're the anchor for your team. They're going to be the ones making space, especially when you're pushing on attack. If you have a very passive main tank, you do have to adjust your play style with them, play a little further back. If you have an aggressive tank, you can use your grenades or whatever very offensively to kind of complement their play style. So a lot of the ebb and flow of Ana is recognizing how your team is playing and adjusting with them. And
Right.
even if it's not your play style, you're naturally a passive player. To find a lot of success with her, you do have to recognize, I believe personally, how your main tank plays the game. If you constantly find yourself on the back foot and having to defensive nade all the time, uh, sometimes I do, especially in the lower ranks mostly, but I do honestly recommend potentially switching to another primary healer like Moira or something, just because a big the big value of Ana on attack especially is the anti-grenade, because you get to capitalize so much on the enemy not being able to heal, and especially with aggression as well, you could just snowball and just win fights so easily if you can get that off. But if you're always on the back foot defensively nading and having to pump heals into them, and your tanks aren't aggressive enough to take advantage of that
Mm-hmm.
ability with Ana, I sometimes do suggest lower ranked players to switch to another healer, because the like the ebb and flow is again playing with the main tank, and I think being aggressive is the name of the game, especially on attack. Just because on attack you just have to win one fight, then you make progress. But on defense, you have to pretty much win every fight in order to stop an objective where it
Yeah.
is, right? King's Road defense, you have to literally win every fight, or else they will cap the point. But on offense, you just got to win one
Mm-hmm.
fight, and you pretty much do get at least 2 ticks, or pretty much the point. So on attack, take advantage of the aggression, play with your main tank, recognize his play style. If he is very defensive, then and you're always constantly defensively nading, then that's fine. You have to adjust your play style. Look to keep healing and use the nano boost that builds really fast now to be that signal for them to be aggressive. Maybe they are taking a lot of
The
poke damage,
gentle
not doing that. That's
encouragement of
fine.
increasing everything by 50%.
Yeah, exactly. Just be like, okay, you're not doing anything. Okay, then you know what? We'll just play with nano instead of anti
Now
grenade.
you
We'll play
have
with
to.
nano boost. Yeah, and that's the big thing about her Anna's rise to the meta right now, is that HP buff that you get with that nano boost now makes it so sweet, especially
Insane.
if it can bait enemies in. They'd be like, oh, our main tank's taking so much damage, and the enemy team's like, wow, look at this main tank, he's not doing anything. Nope, just kidding. Nano boost, full health. Okay, now I can go. So
And it's really
it flips
great
the
too. You
tables
want to
on
talk
them.
about how it adjusts with even aggressive style? Like you have a completely different setup for that.
Yeah, exactly. So just the new nano boost is so great now at baiting enemies in, thinking they can commit onto kills, and then you just turn the tables on them. So I've actually found myself using my nano boost way more defensively than I used to, or at least like
Mm.
in ways to save my teammate. I've been using nanos
Right.
on people I never normally used to. Like obviously, you always look to ideally combo with like Genji Blade or any
Mhm.
sort of big comboing ultimates. But sometimes like if I'm playing with even an Orisa on Junkertown defense and suddenly she's getting low and like I'm healing somebody, my squishy or my sniper on a different angle, I'm like, oh crap, like if we lose our main shield, that also spells defeat for the point. I actually just throw my nano on Orisa. And before the nano buff, you'd be like, why would you nano boost Orisa when you have like, uh Roadhog with a whole hog ready
Anyone
to go.
else?
Anyone else, right? But now that extra tankiness, that instant heal from like that 100 HP Orisa that's getting collapsed on, that usage of Nano Boost is crazy good now. It baits them into committing, and then suddenly the tank is full, and now they have to grind through the main tank with that all that big defensive boost and full HP again. So the
Nano
buff on is
Boost
crazy.
historically was never a defensive ultimate, and actually, it
Exactly.
was one of the biggest drawbacks of playing Ana with your team. That you
Exactly.
had a lot of offensive capabilities, but when it came to keeping your team alive and stuff, Nano Boost was just not really that useful. And like you said, now you can actually use it as a reactive ultimate, and it makes sense to do so, right? You can bait the enemy
Yeah.
team, you can give them this false sense of hope, and once they're overcommitted, they suddenly find that they're battling this giant nano boosted Orisa or whoever it was, even Lucio, or even like nano boosting your Mercy that's about to die sometimes is like good enough. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's a
Exactly.
huge defensive ult now.
Yep. So to definitely keep that in mind. It's like a new aspect of Anna you have to keep in mind and learn at this point as like a, you know, muscle memory kind of thing or just a game sense thing. Just being able to recognize
Yeah.
instead of saving it for that, that big
Mhm.
ultimate, maybe it's actually better used in this current situation to keep someone alive because that could also,
Sure.
mean spell either a defeat or a win depending on whether
Sure,
you're
sure.
attacking or defending. Yeah. So.
Now, we've kind of been bouncing around with all the different abilities. We haven't mentioned Sleep Dart yet, but we'll get there. I wanted to make sure that we can kind of not isolate these because Anna's kit is so. I mean, we say this pretty much every time you have a different kit. Like the hero is nothing without when you try to isolate each individual piece of their playstyle because
Yeah,
you
the
have to
pieces are
utilize
good
them
together.
in this
Yeah.
overlap. Yeah, in the overlap. So let's kind of go with what we said or what KarQ said, which is the core of Honest usability, which is the grenade. And a lot of heroes have kind of their bread and butter, quote unquote, thing outside of their position is like their primary use. So when you look at a hero, you're like, what is good with this hero that they're bringing to the table? You have their role, which kind of describes what they should be doing in general, like damage or blocking, like tanking and or soaking, and then healing, right? So Ana is at the core a core based healer with regards to that. Also offensive slash defensive with the grenade. That's what you're looking at.
Mhm.
So KarQ mentioned some really good use cases on this grenade for now. But I kind of want to go into this and how you kind of frame your brain rather than like giving specific situations if you can. Because like kind of how you think about the grenade can kind of inform like when it's a good decision rather than like here's a bunch of random examples and you know what I mean because like the game
Yeah.
evolves so quickly.
Okay. I gotcha.
So how are you thinking about the grenade like when it's off cooldown? Are you saving it? What are you looking for to use it?
So I think to frame your brain, you should, in general, always be looking to use the anti-grenade offensively over defensively. Just prioritizing it in your brain to start every match. That's what you should be looking for in general. Trying to land the big anti-grenade has more value than defensively. But I wouldn't say just throw it out randomly. Try to look for opportunities instead of just like randomly checking. Oh, I think they're all grouped up. Let me just chuck it. But then you don't recognize that the Ryan can just block it with their shield or the Diva can
Sure.
eat it. So don't mindlessly chuck it out. Save it and look for the opportunities. But if the situation arises where you need to keep a teammate topped off, then your prioritization must switch and you have to just instinctively use it as soon as you see someone who like needs it now. But other than
Mhm.
that, frame your brain around looking for the anti grenade first and foremost. Uh, Either landing it in a big group or if not, someone who's cut out of position or someone who's, if their Reinhardt's starting to swing and he's very aggressive and you can just land it on him specifically while your team is like backpedaling, like that could spell a defeat for the enemy Reinhardt. Then your team can kill him first and then reestablish the space or whatever. And I know that's like a little example, but I do feel like every game kind of has a main tank. We kind of get where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Right.
examples are fine. But I think that what you said is very true. Like being able to recognize when's the right time to throw it, when the enemy is going to be vulnerable. And I think that the highest impact you can have with a grenade is when you can get it on your team and the enemy team at the same time, or just like a big number of players in the enemy team. So if you're able to recognize these moments where they're grouped up and you have the space to throw it and affect a large number of people, is very important. To give an example, it happens all the time, but your Ryan might be trying to win the battle and suddenly he charges in. If you're able to follow him up with a grenade, knowing that the enemy Reinhardt is not going to be holding his shield up because it's going to be chasing your Reinhardt, and you can get it on both of them, for example, basically giving a huge advantage to your Reinhardt and putting the Reinhardt in the back foot. Places like this is where you want to be looking for, right?
Yep, I agree with that. Yeah, you could definitely turn it around if you hit your ally and the enemy at the same time. So you buff them with the healing. Now your next heal shot does a lot more, 50% more, and then they can't be healed for sure. But I do want to also note that don't tunnel vision in a sense where you're only specifically looking to get big group anti-grenades. It's kind of like the Zarya effect. The Zaryas always want to get the big graviton. Oh, I need to get a 3 or 4 man. But sometimes, getting the 1 or 2 person graviton is enough to win the fight. Sometimes using your anti-grenade in that same principle, that just getting that right person at the right time, even if it's just one person, like one anti-grenade on one person. Yeah, especially that if they can, that can just single-handedly win the fight for your team. At the end of the day, you want to just win that specific team fight. And
so, to kind of like keep this within now that we've kind of framed our minds, let's start to get into more of the examples, like Andres is kind of transitioning us here. So I want to talk about some things that players may be aware of, and some things that maybe more beginners would not be aware of. And this would be kind of interactions with the grenade. So kind of like, how does grenade work with an enemy Zarya trying to bubble, or how does an anti-grenade, like what is, I'm trying to think of like some other things. So if you get shut off with your healing, you get antied, and you have an ally that shields you, does the anti-grenade get cleared, or is it still there? There's kind of some edge case type things is what I'm really looking for here. Or like, what do you do to counter? What ultimates can you counter? What ultimates are good to combo, etc.
Okay, so for the newer players and the synergies,
Yeah.
So of course, anti-grenade, the grenade from Ana is the only ability in the game that can completely shut off healing specifically, not armor. So interaction-wise, let's say my Reinhardt is anti-grenade from the enemy team. If I shoot them with any of my shots, if I throw my own grenade at them, nothing happens. They don't get healed at all. Even if I nano boost them now, nano boost is healing. It's 300 HP, like the regular white health. You cannot heal them with nano boost. If they're anti-grenade and you nano them and they're low HP, they'll still be low HP. Armor interacts differently. So let's say, Brigitte is
rallying.
If she's rallying, she'll still ramp up armor because armor is not the same as
That's right.
HP, right? So that's like a very important interaction to remember as well. In terms of what was the next part?
Counters.
Counters to anti-grenade. I believe the only thing that can cleanse anti-grenade is the bubble from Zarya, and that is it. Unless like I'm missing something.
I think that might
so,
be
because
it.
not even Mei Ice Block does it now, right? Mei still keeps the grenade even throughout the ice block.
Yeah. Wait, no. Oh yeah. I totally forgot about that. So like
they remedied that. Yeah.
Yeah. For anybody else in the game that doesn't have a specific ability that phases them out of the game, I'll touch on that in a second.
Sure.
Zarya is the only person who can bubble and like cleanse not only herself but anybody else on the team. So
Yeah.
I did forget to mention that. I can't believe that completely slipped my mind. It's early in the morning. So any hero
It's
in the
fine.
game that can phase out, as in they disappear out of they go like invulnerable for a moment, they can cleanse that anti-grenade. So that
Like
means
Reaper, right?
yeah,
So
so if
Reaper-
Wraith forms, he's invulnerable. He
Mhm.
can, if he gets anti-grenaded and he pops the Wraith and unpops the Wraith, like you can
He's
obviously
clear.
he's cleared from the anti-grenade. Moira Fade can clear the anti-grenade.
Okay.
Sombra translocating out, I believe. No
Mhm.
wait, that doesn't
I think
cleanse
they
the
fixed that, right?
grenade.
At least
I
it gets you out of danger, though.
it gets you out of damage over time. So if you shoot the Sombra and she's, you know how like Anna's shots do like the
Mhm.
2020, it takes
Right.
3 times. I do believe if you translocate out, it stops it, unless I'm mistaken.
Really?
That is correct,
I
because
didn't
there's
know
a
that.
brief window of invulnerability when you
Invulnerability.
activate it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that cancels
that's
it out. I know.
It's a
It's
good
similar to
Sombra
Tracer's
trick.
recall is kind of how you want to
Yeah.
parse that in your brain is
Yeah, so
Tracer
yeah,
recall, Sombra.
Yeah,
Recall.
Tracer's recall also cleanses the anti-grenade if you recall specifically. Yeah, so again, anything that I say phase out, and I say phase, not like the esports thing, but like PHASE, like you disappear from the map, that invulnerability for a moment. If you ever have
Yeah.
anything that makes you invulnerable, you should, in theory, be able to cleanse it, unless there's some inconsistencies on the coding from the game.
Sure. So that means that Orisa using her whatever it's called, I can never remember.
Fortify?
Is it just halt?
Fortify?
Fortify, that's it. When
Right.
she's using Fortify, she's resistant. It doesn't clear anything.
Right. And then the weird interaction, there was also one with Winston. You know how he gains health, 1,000 health when he primal rages? It used to
That's
be
right.
if you anti-grenaded him, he would only gain half the HP, but then they just said, let's just buff Winston and make it, even if he's anti-grenaded, he'll always gain 1,000 health with primal. So that's a little bit, I guess, inconsistent with the way the idea of how anti-grenade works. Because I think in theory, yeah, he's gaining health, but he's anti-grenaded. I guess he shouldn't be
Yeah.
health if he does it, but they
He
did
does-
that.
Yeah, the
He
way
does
that
re-
they
does he still
coded it is
regenerate?
why they made that change. Yeah, because it has to do with a transformational ult. If you guys remember, they have transformations, they have channeling, like Farah and Moira, and then they have I can't even remember the last one. Oh, I think it's just like a projectile, right? It's just like one thing, like a Junkrat tire, for example.
No, I
think
feel
that's-
like Junkrat is
yeah.
considered channeling.
Maybe no, it's May. It's May and the new Torbolt. It's just like you shoot it and it's done.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, Andres, what were you gonna say? Sorry to cut you off there.
Let's talk a little bit about how you use your grenade in the 1v1s. There comes a point where Anna might be getting harassed, by a Tracer or a Genji, and you have to really choose whether you have to use that grenade on yourself to keep yourself alive, or save it for your team. Sometimes it's a hard decision, right? It's in a big cooldown, so once you use it, you're kind of spent for a little bit of time. So how do you balance kind of like the risk of dying versus using the grenade for the greater good?
Okay, so number one rule for playing Anna, and I guess supports in general, is you need to be greedy and keep yourself alive first and foremost. The whole greater good thing doesn't matter if you're already dead. Right? You're gonna be out of the fight. You're out of the fight. If you're dead, you're dead.
greatest good.
Yeah, you are the greatest good. Exactly. You gotta be greedy and make sure you're alive. Because if you're dead for 10 seconds or more based on respawn times. Then you need time to get back into the fight. We'll say like just arbitrarily, you're 20 seconds gone from the fight versus that cooldown of whatever grenade is right now, 12 seconds, and you're also the value you add with sleep, nano, and your own regular healing. So if you're being jumped, you kind of have to be greedy against flankers. And ideally for me, if I'm ever jumped by Tracer or Genji, I look to nade both of us. I'll try to find moments where they get a little bit up close to me and try to get both of us. That's the best value you can get. If they're really playing their space and distance right, and you're about to die, you're gonna have to grenade yourself only. Like I wouldn't go for them unless I can specifically get a kill with a shot and nade, right?
Especially if that deflect is going, that can be dangerous.
Yeah. So and then I was gonna touch on especially flankers always have these abilities that you kind of have to look out for. So if you're being jumped by Tracer, the ability you gotta look out for is recall, and if you're being jumped by Genji, it's deflect. So the rule of thumb is, always just assume they have deflect and recall unless you physically see it or somebody calls it and you physically hear. Kind of like with a firearm, you always assume that it's like in real life. They always say, always assume the gun is
safety's
loaded.
off.
Safety's off and the gun is loaded. So always assume,
Mhm.
always assume Genji has his deflect. Always, unless you see it. So I actually try my best to hold on to my grenade until I see that, and then again try to prioritize landing it on both, if not myself. So whenever a Genji's like dashing into me, I won't immediately grenade myself. I'll actually try to like get a shot back and see,
See if you can get him to pull it.
see if I can get them to bait it out, right? Often what I'll do is if they get up close to me, I'll try to shoot melee at the same time to kind of do enough damage to bait them into deflecting or recalling. Because obviously if they take damage, they might instinctively start deflecting or recalling to kind of, save themselves. So I always look for those cooldowns first before pulling the trigger on the nade. If unless I'm about to die, of course, then yeah.
Now, Andres brings us into
the
the 1v1 mindset, which is
Yeah.
really good transition into the sleep dart, because I wanted
Honestly-
to ask you about how you use it in the same situation, and then with regards to public enemy number one as of the meta right now, which is Doomfist against
Oh
us.
yeah.
Oh yeah, so I want to say with Doomfist, like that's the one hero that actually is so
Just
annoying,
shuts
because
you
with
down.
Tracer and Genji you can kind of grenade and survive for a little bit. If Doomfist jumps you with this relatively high charge seismic slam, like he does that like rooftop Narnia stuff where he comes off from nowhere, you just
Comes
look
in
at
from another country.
yeah, he comes in from a different galaxy at this point, and you're like, where is he coming from? If you get slammed up, even with a grenade, if he like lands on you with seismic and you even react and throw a nade on yourself and him, the damage on him doesn't matter because he gets this like weird barrier that
Yep.
that doesn't matter with the healing at that current moment. He's not gonna die to the nade or anything if he's at full health. And then the healing you did is obsolete because he'll just like do a primary fire uppercut and a couple more primary fires and you're cooked. So public enemy Doomfist, if you ever hear him, you have to get into the habit of trying to sleep him. That's like your only way of surviving unless your team is there to protect you. In a solo situation where you're off on your own, your only minuscule chance of survival is sleeping him, either before he lands a seismic or the moment he lands the seismic before he can get the uppercut off. Because
You can like whip out the gun while he's slamming you, and then
Yeah,
when you
exactly.
both go airborne, nap time.
That's it,
big boy.
Yeah, exactly. But that's already
Yeah.
like hard enough to do. So he's actually
yeah.
the bane of my existence right now. He has less counterplay than Genji and Tracer. That's like I've died
Wow.
more to Doomfist this season than any other flanker, even like Winston and Genji. Like I've
The
died more to Doomfist than to any other hero in the game right now.
yeah,
The absolute hardest.
it's a pain in the ass for Anna to say the least. But I would say the silver lining with Doomfist, like you guys already mentioned, is that his kit, unless he's a really good Doomfist, like you said, can come from like super unexpected places. But normally his kit does make him predictable in the sense that all of his abilities are incredibly linear, right? Like once he's committed to them, he's just moving in the same direction. And it's a hard thing to do, but you can commit it to muscle memory with your sleep darts. Is the best tool that you can use against him. Because you can, when
I'll
you can see
even-
him charge him towards you, it's a straight path. And like if you get the timing right, you can actually get a lot of sleeps on subpar Doomfists. If those Doomfists are not being unpredictable and stuff, you can make him look like fools sometimes.
So I guess that's where my mind is a bit skewed because like obviously since I play at Grandmaster, most like 99% of Doomfists like aren't
fine.
Are fine to the point where I honestly they say just look for the seismic and get the sleep. It's actually almost impossible because he also has that like get out of jail free card with his ultimate. He's like,
Right.
you're about to sleep him as soon as
It's like, oh, I'm
uppercuts
feeding.
another-
I'll just use my ult.
yeah, like the relatively even decent Doomfist. It's actually easier said than done to land a sleep on. I know it's linear and it may be like he's feeding and not managing weaving his abilities correctly at like just like your average run of the mill Doomfist. I can see that, but I guess I'm just biased because I honestly
you
haven't
play
seen it,
against
and
the best Doomfist.
I am actually so frustrated with Doomfist, and I'm like it's it's awful right now. I think this is
So I wanted to bring this up because this is something that I believe you will 100% be able to get away with outplaying Doomfist because of how difficult this technique is for him to eat you until you get into kind of the mid to upper plat range, and then you'll start seeing this be a lot more common. And the frequency by which Doomfist gets picked against Ana is a what you would say is like the hockey stick curve, right? Kind of goes and goes and goes from like bronze to silver to gold, and then boom, from platinum and diamond it just skyrockets, and that's the play. Because once people start getting into this mindset where and abilities, I guess you could say, where they can actually play it, then you'll start seeing it. So a lot of higher tier players are complaining about this being, really really difficult, but this is one of those classic balance issues around skill tiers, which is
yeah.
really hard. But I also wanted to highlight that one of my good friends, Jay Lee, that Andres and I have played a lot with, he's been kind of taking me under his wing and teaching me a lot of the Ana plays. And he says the number one counter to Doomfist is high ground, because you're removing a lot of the space that you have in the what's called the skybox.
Yeah.
The skybox by which he can gain, the advantage of getting above you and hitting you with the seismic slam, because Doomfist's seismic slam ability, it increases the damage based off of the height that he's moving from, right? So if
For the
you're on the
most part, yeah.
baseline bottom of the map, you may not really have much option. Like, you may have to be there at that given time, and then you just get eaten. Like
Yeah.
KarQ's saying, like, he's not getting eaten and playing bad. He's getting eaten because he's supposed to be there, and
Yeah.
Doomfist is just like no counterplay from that point on. But a lot of times, players that are not mastering Ana and Grandmaster level, this is your number one thing that you should be working on. If you see Doomfist, it's time to get high ground, and you got to camp there, because you're removing a lot of his you're removing a lot of his damage, and B, if he has to burn any of his cooldowns to get up to a high ground where you are, that means that's one more cooldown he doesn't have for you. So you can actually deal with him this way.
That's
And yeah, go ahead, KarQ. Any
like a silver,
addendums there?
That's like the silver lining, like that. You're correct in that, but then you may compromise your sight lines to heal your team and
That's right.
and all that. So it's a fine balance you kind of have to look towards. So you're not wrong, but at the same time, it's very dependent again on where your team is playing. Like suddenly, if you're on this specific high ground, like let's say Eichenwald, right, on defense, maybe the Doomfist might do some weird castle flank and he comes all the way behind. Seismic slam combo on the low ground. Sometimes, as an Ana, you may be like, okay, so high ground's my answer. Maybe I'll stand high ground, back of the point or something. But then if your team moves a little bit past that little like big tower in front of you, then you suddenly lose sight lines because you're playing up there for your safety. So, yeah, like I said, silver lining. You're not wrong, but it's also, again, as with everything.
Yeah, and again, this is primarily teaching a platinum level player how to improve their Ana is kind of what I'm getting at, not like helping diamond players play better, something like that.
And this
Andres, what are you gonna say?
This is good because right now Doomfist is like Ana's number one natural predator, right? Like as an Ana player,
I mean, he was eating me in this game.
I would say that, yeah, from my experience, of course. But like, where you guys are at, how much Doomfist do you actually see?
Well, Doomfist has become a lot more
I've been seeing
prevalent
him quite a bit.
in Diamond and like low masters. You see him quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm in upper platinum right now, so I'm about 27 to 2900 range at the current.
I would say you don't see
moment.
the insane Doomfists that are like jumping all over the place. Very rarely you see those. Sometimes you kind of get some Doomfists that are a little easier to counter, but yeah, every once in a while you do get like the good Doomfist. So you still gotta watch out as an Ana player because they're still gonna target you. You're easy target for them.
Yeah,
you want to talk about the sleep dart just in general now that
we talk about
public enemy number one?
Yeah, well, but in the context of other things, how else do you use the sleep dart?
Yeah, I guess when we mentioned Doomfist again, sleep dart's your only answer against him. Against the other flankers specifically, it's the same idea, same principle with the deflect and recall, and even if Diva jumps you or Winston jumps you, Winston you have to look out for the bubble. Diva you have to always imagine the matrix. In situations like that, try to look for that first before committing your sleep dart. In the same idea of always assume they have an ability that counters it until you physically see it. Sometimes I get in the habit of seeing a Winston leap and I want to instinctively sleep dart them, but then they actually like throw their bubble early on in the air, and then they actually block it, and then I'm cooked. Or D.Va jumps me, and I instinctively want to sleep darter, and then she just eats it with Matrix
Mm-hmm.
or with Tracer. She'll blink around a million times. So against flankers specifically or dive heroes, hold on to it until you see the opportunity. I don't instinctively use sleep dart against them, especially those guys. In terms of, sleep dart in general, when you're on offense, early on especially, I like to use it proactively because sleep darts are great for opening opportunities for your team to, pick off a target who gets slept early on and is caught out of position. They can't do anything for a little bit. I usually want to say after about a minute or two, this also ties into ultimate economy and just tracking ultimates. After maybe about a minute and a half, I start considering using my sleep dart more reactively instead of proactively, and look to potentially cancel out some ultimates. Like if I know I don't have my Zenyatta's Transcendence or something available, and I know their Genji is about to, pull a Nano Blade, it seems about that time that he's looking to do something like that. I won't ever just throw out my sleep dart randomly at this point. I'll actually just hold on to it until I see it, and then I try to go for the crazy sleep on the Genji Blade, and it feels like it's hard to hit normally, but that might be your only play of surviving, and sometimes you need to hold on to it to react to an offensive ultimate. So again, to reiterate, proactive for the most part early on. You have to track ultimate economy, and then if you have something very important to cancel, their Rhine's going to shatter or pull like a charge off really soon, I would just hold on to it and use it reactively to save someone or save your team with it. Other than that, use it proactively.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because the sleep dart is so strong against channeled ultimates that happened over a period of time, right? We're talking about like Genji Sword, Winston's ultimate, Roadhog's, Whole Hog, any of these ultimates that gain value over time. Your sleep dart is just amazing and getting rid of them and just knocking the hero off. You're still a liability that your team might hit him accidentally and wake him up. But for the most part, great way of just neutralizing an incredibly powerful move.
Yep. As long as nobody wakes them up, you can. Sleep dart's 5 seconds, and a lot of channeled ultimates don't last much more than 5 seconds. You can definitely get rid of more than 50% of the channel because I don't even know what ultimate lasts.
Yeah, the transformation ones are the ones that are the ones you have to worry about if they get woken up. That would be your Bastions, your Genjis, your Winstons. But then if you get there's also the instant ones like Reinhardt, where you have a window of time in the wind up where you can shut it down, and the channeled ultimates anytime during the channeling you can just shut it down. That's your
like the Reaper ultimate or Pharah ultimate as well.
Yeah, Reaper, Pharah, McCree, Moira.
Cancel it. Yeah.
Yeah, those will just shut them down. Now, fun fact for those of you in the tiers that may have tried this or not tried this yet, you cannot sleep the Transcendence from Zenyatta. He's completely immune, just so you know. Don't try it.
He's in the
Don't
iris.
try this at
You
home.
don't sleep in the iris.
That is the most woke state that one can be. All right. Bad jokes aside, let's get into what we call map dependency. So talk about some situations you're like, I hate this map for Ana. Even though I'll still play Ana because I love playing her, Anubis is one of those maps for me. I just hate playing Anubis especially on offense. Maybe not so much on defense, but you want to talk about some of the maps that you're like, I love Ana on this. I think she is kind of map dependent on this one, etc.
I'd say maps that have a lot of structures and objects and walls that block your sightlines are the worst. So I personally dislike playing on Anubis second point, offense and defensively, and Ilios Ruins. Like those are just awful. And I know you'd be like, wow, Ilios Ruins is a sniper map. Yeah, for Widow and Hanzo when they can get high ground and look top down. But when you're on low ground as Ana, like you walk up on Ilios Ruins, you're like, okay, here's a thing here. Okay, and I gotta move to the left. Oh, there's a big pillar here as well. And my team's like diving.
Grandma's got bad knees, man. She can't climb walls.
And like my team's like over this wall, and you know how the point's kind of like sunken down too, and then you kind of have to like get up close to even look down into there. So if you're not Widow and you're not Hanzo, where you have a snipe like a high ground line of sight, and you're low ground and like you don't get teleported up from your Symmetra and you're not already up there, it's incredibly difficult to play Ana effectively on that map. And on second point, Anubis offensively mostly, depending on where your team is going, like you're not really making use of her strength, which is her long sight lines, because you're obviously blocked by so much structure. You're actually kind of moving with your team. Usually on Anubis on attack, you kind of be like, okay, everybody go left side. Let's go like dark area. And you have to
Yeah.
kind of have to like huddle with them. Like you can't play at an angle where you get long sight lines. If you stay like the main and you want to shoot straight down, you get that little like small angle to the center. But if anybody moves a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, again, you have no angle to heal them anymore. So you have to move with your team. And because you're moving with your team, sometimes I think Moira is actually great on attacking second point Anubis, just because you're bundled up with them regardless, and you get big like AoE heals or whatever. But of course, that's
Yeah.
not to say Anna can't be played there. You know, playing around like a big nano blade or something's always great too. Even playing with your team, getting the big grenades on them and anti-grenades, all the fights centralized on one point. So I mean,
Yeah.
not to say that you can't play it, but you know, those are annoying maps for me personally. And I guess in
Okay.
general for Anna's is just stuff that blocks your sight lines because she's a sniper, and unfortunately you can't wall climb and get on high ground for the most part on certain maps. So
All right.
yeah,
I gotcha. I gotcha. I have a random question that I forgot to ask on our last one, which is the art of the quick scope.
sure.
So I'm just gonna leave it at that because this is something that probably needs to be just explained. What is a quick scope, and then how do you do it, and then how do you do it well?
Okay. So I do want to say quick scope. If you're looking to play Anna, learning of the quick scope is something you should 150% learn how to do. It's like a mechanic that's integrated into her, and it's like almost required to play her effectively, in my opinion, to get the maximum value out of her. It's kind of like with Tracer. You got to kind of learn how to blink melee, or you know, I wouldn't say 180 pulses or anything crazy like that, but just blink meleeing and just using the mechanic that's given to you. So anyways, for the quick scoping for Ana, for especially some of the newer players, they may not realize that unscoped shots are projectile. There's a little travel time, right? If you shoot unscoped shots, it's a little bullet that has to travel a little distance before it reaches your target. If you're scoped in, it's instantaneous. It's a hit scan, no matter how far they are on the map. And quick scoping is kind of like that balance between them, right? You are able to get that quick hit scan shot by quickly scoping in and shooting without losing out on the downside of being slow while you're scoped in. So actually, let me backtrack that. I kind of explained that poorly.
Go ahead.
So obviously,
That's
with
fine.
the unscoped shot, again, is projectile, and scope shot is hit scan. That's first and foremost. However, because the unscoped shot is projectile and it's not accurate in that sense, the one upside is that you get to move at full movement speed. You get to move around. You can keep firing unscoped shots,
And
if
you
you're
get a
scoped in,
full view, and you get full view, no
a full view,
obstructed.
yeah.
And vision.
Yeah, full vision. You're not zoomed in, and you don't lose like your peripheral vision.
Mhm.
If you're scoped in, yes, it's hit scan, so you gain that benefit. But then again, you lose that benefit of being able to see everything because you're scoped in and
Right.
zoomed in. You lose your peripheral vision, and you move a lot slower. Like your movement speed is cut by like 70%. You're like a snail. You're just scoped in, and if you
You
stay
actually look
scoped
like
in,
a snail.
yeah, you're like crouched up, and then you're looking through your sniper, like, and you just move extremely slowly, and it's very evident and very obvious. So quick scoping is that balance between the two, where if you jump and then quickly scope, shoot, and then unscope, you get the benefit of the hit scan while retaining your movement, because if you jump beforehand, or you get to maintain that jump speed and that movement.
Yeah, you have the
during entire
momentum
motion.
of the jump, so you're still moving at a relatively fast speed
Bingo.
while you're doing the scope.
Exactly. But again, quick scoping also does have another downside in that the rate of fire is slower, comparatively speaking. Just pumping unscoped shots or pumping scope shots has like, you know, like a tempo, like a rate of fire.
Yeah,
Like if I were
faster
to-
rhythm.
Yeah, a faster rhythm. If I were to like explain it audibly, it'd be like, you know, like that. If you can hear that. Well, that's actually a bit too fast. Like, you know, an unscoped shot would be like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. But then a quick scope is like 1, 2, 3. Like it's definitely slower. But the accuracy and the movement speed, or retaining the momentum and the accuracy of the hit scan is honestly something that I would trade for that rate of fire, because although you're shooting just slightly slower rate of rhythm wise, you're more accurate, and that means more because I notice if I shoot a lot of unscoped shots, even if I miss one shot, then that rate of fire doesn't mean as much anymore because I've missed a shot. Whereas I can use the quick scope and ensure I hit my target, and then it doesn't matter because if I hit 2 consecutive quick scope shots versus shooting a ton of unscoped inaccurate shots and me even missing one of them, kind of like the healing you get from that is offset by the tempo. If that kind of makes sense. I kind of rambled a little
No,
bit,
no, no,
but
no, no.
No, that's okay.
It's good.
if you could, yeah, if you could kind of like put that in better words, you know what I mean? Like if you just miss a single shot even at that faster pace, then it's like the same as shooting 2 slower quick scope shots.
Right.
And absolute healing.
And I think that the art of Ana, you have to do them all, right? It's not like you're always have to quick shot, always have to hip fire. Like I think you need to recognize in what situation you're in. Like for example, I see Annas when they're up close with their team, they don't bother with scoping at all. They're just like hip shooting everything. Their tanks are right in front of them, so they're really easy to hit. The travel time doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
In other situations, maybe when you are behind cover, you're completely safe, but maybe your Reinhardt across the distance is getting focused by somebody, maybe just staying scoped in and just shooting shots straight at him to keep him alive might be the way to go. Go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, I wanted to interrupt just briefly, which is the third benefit to using the scope is the shots that you take on allies have a little bit of wiggle room with your aim assist.
Yes.
Meaning that you don't have to hit the pinpoint center of your crosshairs. It can kind of have like this mini triangle. There's a weird hitbox thing, right? The hitboxes are almost like increased by 1 or 2 kind of like small areas.
Yeah, so
KarQ, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, hitting your teammates with any sort of healing with Ana is a lot more forgiving on your teammates. Like they have like a bigger hitbox. It's a lot more forgiving to hit your allies, but it's a lot harder to hit. Like against enemies, it's the exact same as like Widow or any sort of hit scan. You have to be precise. So that's where like Andres said, quick scoping is a great mechanic to learn, but you have to learn to balance all 3. You can't you use all 3 in the game at all times, right? There's situations to shoot unscoped shots. Like you said, if tanks are right in front of you, you just keep pumping out the unscoped shots. If your teammates are really far away and you're safe and you don't really need that movement speed from the quick scoping, you just stay scoped in and
sit
just
in the scope
heals from a distance. But if you're fighting if you're fighting an enemy that's like relatively mid-range and you need that precise shot while kind of juking around with that movement speed, like if I see a Farah and she's like actively looking at me, I won't stay scoped in on her because if I stay scoped in for even 2 shots, I'm standing still. That's 2 easy direct rockets. I'm dead. So against a Farah at like mid range, I'll be like quick scope here so I can keep my movement and I'll keep juking left and right. Quick scope here, try to get another shot. Quick scope here, try to get another shot. Kind of like that.
It basically lets you double up on the benefits of utilizing both styles simultaneously is kind of the idea.
Yeah,
it lets you have the mobility of running around, have the ability of dodging shots and crouching and moving around and then even jumping. And then the other allows you to have instantaneous feedback for your shots, a little bit more accuracy if it's in a mid to long range fight, or if you're trying to dodge shots and then heal your team instead of competing with the 1v1. I've also seen Anas do this where they're like, we're up in the fight. I'm 1v1 with this guy, but I can just heal them. And if they get a pick before I die, then it's a 4v5 and we're still fine. There's those situations that come up too, like you were saying. So yeah.
Yeah, so just balancing all 3 styles. It's one of those styles you have to learn. And did I mention how to do it? It's honestly so super simple for those who don't know how to quick scope. Again, you just scope in, you press your scope button whether you're on console or PC, and the instant your character is about to go zoomy, you just press your fire and let go of both buttons.
It's like as soon as it allows you to shoot after scoping in, basically you're pressing the button.
Yeah. And then you always have to keep in mind that the rate of fire is slower. There is like a little downtime where you literally cannot shoot or do anything. So the complaint I get when people try to learn quickscopes like KarQ, how come whenever I quickscope, I just feel like it's just like I can't shoot for a little bit? It's that timing is super important. You kind of have to integrate that timing and tempo in your brain, like on how fast that quick scope shot is before you're allowed to, and you have to play off that timing, or else you'll find yourself
you try to quick scope a lot of hours in the practice range.
If you try to do another quick scope right after the first one, you'll sometimes zoom in and be like, oh, I can't shoot. Now I'm just stuck for a little bit.
You just gotta
Uh,
be aware that they've given you that penalty, right? That like
Yes.
Right.
almost like when you scope in, there's a little drawback. You just can't be like scoping in all the time. That would be super OP if you could just do it instantly and be able to fire. So Blizzard has given you a small penalty when you scope in. There's a little delay, but it
Yep.
can pay off greatly. Like if you can learn that quick scope, that's how you can do the clutch heals. On like for example, when you're saying your Genji's up in the rafters, he's getting focused and he's about to die, just quickly being able to react to that, quick scoping, knowing that you're gonna get a sure shot that's gonna be more precise and that's gonna hit him immediately rather than have a travel time, can be
Yeah.
super clutch, and you can save a lot of people like that from across the map where you had no business saving them, right? Like they are so far away from you, but Anna can still provide that in a very fast manner.
Yes, exactly. And especially with Genjis and Tracers, just your own. Don't you just hate it when like your own Genji in your team's like jumping, I need healing, but he's like doing some crazy like wall climbs and jumping, and you're just trying to shoot them like, oh, I'm just
Bro,
missing.
if they can't hit you, I can't either. Okay.
Yeah,
Like you're
exactly.
juking them, but you're juking me too.
Yeah, exactly. And then at that point, you just say, okay, screw it. You can just have a grenade. Or no,
I'm just gonna use my nano. Forget it. We don't
Yeah.
even need it.
yeah. But quick scoping is that balance between it and being able to reliably, for the most part, get that shot on them when it matters in the middle of a fight is super crucial. So quick scoping, that mechanic, learn it, master the timing, weave it into your gameplay, find the balance between all three. We kind of touched on when to use each. They all have their pros and cons.
Now,
And,
can you mention something that I heard recently, which is the value of hitting shots versus taking shots that you might miss, if that makes sense? Like slowing down just like one beat of tempo is kind of the idea that I'm kind of going for here, is just like slowing your quick scopes down when you're not confident in them, like scoping in and then like taking just a real brief longer second than making it instant, just to make sure you hit your shot, instead of quick scope and then pull out of the scope and you're like, did I even hit them? You want to talk a little bit about just making sure you're hitting the shots at all, or maybe kind of like the transition into learning how to do this?
I feel
Because
like
I know we
that,
talk
like,
about the high level stuff, but
yeah, I guess that's kind of wrapped on the high level stuff. I feel like that shouldn't be a thing you should consider. I feel like you should always be high APM or actions per minute, always be looking to
Okay.
do something. I personally wouldn't take too much downtime in between shots, and it's not as evident with Anna, but like with Zenyatta, some people are very careful with their shots. But I'm like, dude, you should just be spamming. Forget the accuracy. A lot of people actually ask me about Anna. What's my Anna accuracy? What should my Zen accuracy be? All that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, if you're playing Zenyatta, forget the accuracy. Just keep spamming chokes. They're gonna see orbs flying. They may not. It's a psychological thing. They don't want to like walk through a choke point if they see orbs flying through a door. Forget the accuracy. For Anna, honestly, I do want to say if you can evolve yourself into just looking to always be pumping shots, and if you can minimize any sort of downtime as often as you can, I think that would be the right approach. To transition to
Okay.
that, I guess, would just be game experience and being comfortable on the hero. But
sure.
and also, I guess I touch on accuracy. If people are curious on what the excuse me, the correct accuracy or a good accuracy is, I would just want to say it doesn't matter as much. If you're landing a bunch of shots in your tanks during like times where it's not important, your accuracy is going to be a little inflated. But then you're missing all the important shots on your Genji who needs it at the right time. Just land the shots when they count the most, when they're most important. That's the most important factor you should consider. I wouldn't worry too much about your accuracy. Like I get an overwhelming amount of questions on what's the good accuracy nowadays, and I'm like, forget it. Just the most important stat is the win, of course. And landing the shots when they matter the most. Like if you're landing the clutch shots when they matter. That's bottom line.
I would also say be ready to practice a little bit on Anna, because I would say out of all the healers, she's probably on the more mechanically demanding side. Like you said, you're gonna have to find your shots. You're gonna have to get in the groove of that rhythm, that timing. She's not a super easy hero to play, especially not to its full potential, where your team really starts feeling like, wow, or Anna is keeping us all alive. I'm getting clutch heals when I thought I was gonna die. I'm getting nano boosts at the right times. She's really recognizing. I go in, there's grenades behind me and on the enemy team. Like when you have a really good Anna, you feel it in your team. It feels really, really good. But it takes a little bit to get there, and you're definitely gonna have to put some practice, especially on your aim for this particular hero.
Yeah, that's one of the heroes that you can't just be like, you know what, we need an Anna, so I guess I'll just play Anna, even though I've never played her before. I honestly think you're better off when they say Mercy's not as meta and not as good anymore. Like, I mean, if you're like a DPS only player and you've literally never played any healer in your life, but you're forced to, and you're filling for your team for once and not locking in, you know, Hanzo or whatever,
Yeah.
and you literally never play Anna, you'll find way more effectiveness just playing a different primary healer. It's a little bit easier to pick up at first, right? To get the full
Right.
potential, like Andres said, you really need to put some hours of practice into her, weaving your cooldowns, your sleeps, the timing on your just get that sleep start wind up time, you know, finding
Yeah.
opportunities when to grenade offensively or defensively, quick scoping, all that kind of stuff. Definitely very mechanically demanding hero, but in my opinion, the most rewarding. But obviously, I'm a bit
Yeah.
biased.
All of her skills are actually pretty mechanically demanding. They're required to have some sort of timing and prediction. I would say maybe Nano Boost is her easier ability, but even then, you have to have a good, keen strategy eye for that one.
I agree.
So I think the last thing that we should really wrap up here is what about Ana can you say is something that you need to be looking at when you are in the character selection screen? Like to consider playing Ana, what are some factors that you're looking for to increase your value? Like what other heroes can people pick to help you?
Right now, another healer would be nice. I would. It's tough to solo. Yeah, it's tough to solo heal as Ana. Having I think Brigitte and Lucio are the best combos with Ana right now. Not even Zenyatta as much anymore. Strictly because they're very solo-esque healers. But I've been noticing Brigitte AOE healing while she swings helps so much with like the chip and poke damage because. If you have a Zenyatta and you're taking a little like chip damage, like Zenyatta usually can only keep an orb on one person at a time. And if you're a little low, you don't want to obviously throw a grenade on yourself if you can help it. So I would say playing Ana with Lucio or Brigitte are my personal favorites right now, and I like them the most. Running two primary healers like Ana Moria or Ana Mercy is a very niche and only on very specific compositions. And I guess the tank lineup with Ana that I'd be looking out for is Reinhardt. I think Reinhardt and Ana are like a very bread and buttery kind of combo.
They're good pals, yeah.
Well. They're good pals, yeah. You can do a lot with the Reinhardt.
I like that you mentioned that you want another healer. We never mentioned this before, but Ana needs some help. You know what I mean? Like all your cooldowns are big abilities that have big uses, and unfortunately they're on big cooldowns as well. So utilizing things like the grenade
even
on
your
yourself,
reload can be your worst enemy.
Right. I absolutely hate it when I'm just like, oh, I need to heal somebody and they need heals now, but I gotta reload.
No, for sure. It's a big opportunity cost with Ana every time you use your abilities. Like in one section, there's another section that you can't really attend to. So having that filler healer, like you said, like somebody who can just constantly be helping out Ana with like the small little chip damage that is not really worthwhile of your grenade, but it really does add up over time. And you know that Genji's looking out after that, right? Like if you're like half health or a little bit hurt, he's already has his eye on you because it makes you vulnerable to getting one shot or burst damage just like out of the way. Even a body shot from a Widow can take you out. So just to keep her healthy and alive and not have to worry about those things, it's nice having that companionship.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely another healer that, you know how I said earlier, the most important life is your own. And then the next important life is your other support, actually. You're talking about prioritization on healing.
Yeah.
Keeping yourself alive first and foremost, and keeping the other support alive is like the backbone of your team, right? You lose the healers, your team pretty much might lose the fight, right?
Yeah.
So
I think Ana's been the one hero in Overwatch that more than even any other hero in the game, I feel like you kind of just need to go into ranked, and if you really want to dedicate your time to saying this is what I'm going to practice, and just staying under that and saying this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play a lot of Ana. I'm going to lose a lot of games. And then I'm going to learn this, and then I'm going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, just ask Jay Lee.
I think like Doomfist and Genji and even Tracer to a certain extent, like these are heroes that are kind of in that category. It's like if you're gonna commit, you gotta like go all in and like sit down and play this hero a lot. And you can say that about pretty much every hero. But when you get into these heroes that are like more mechanically demanding, I guess you could say, or like
Yeah.
heroes where more commonly you see players that are like, I'm in an Overwatch team. What do you play? I play Tracer. Like that's it. Or
Yeah.
I play, Ana. I'm an Ana player. Ryoje Hong, for example. Like he's really good at Zenyatta. He's, the Ryoje Kong memes that came out about his Winston play. Like there's all kinds of stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
But there's still gonna be heroes that Overwatch's team creates that are just like, you got to commit if you're gonna want to
Yeah,
learn this.
you gotta put some hours in them to
Yeah.
get the potential out of them for sure. Yep.
Yeah. All right, guys. KarQ, you want to talk about your resources that we've included in the show before we transition to talk a little bit more about Team Canada and World Cup?
Yeah, these are great places
Yeah.
to keep learning about Anna. KarQ has an awesome video collection. Do you want to go a little bit through that?
Yep, I've got obviously my flagship one tip series that you may or may not have seen that I guess I'm pretty much known for at this point. Like that's kind of what built or really accelerated my brand and my YouTube channel was the one tip for every hero series where I just feature a hero and we kind of give a matchup tip for I guess every hero at the current time. And I did one with Gale Adelaide, another fantastic East Coast Ana player.
East
Top
Coast,
tier.
yeah.
Yeah, NA was top tier. You may or may not have heard of them. I also have, set grenade spots, which are useful. They're a bit outdated a little bit, but some of them you can still pull off. There's a couple new ones that came out, and those are the ones that I used in the past. There's a couple new ones. You can definitely search those up. There's also, I think one of the better videos I have is the 5 advanced Ana tips, which I recommend you checking out. That one does give more intricate things about where I touch on quick scoping. I touch on anti-grenade angles, like using walls to kind of get the splash damage off to get the anti-effect. Instead of like landing them on like a group of enemies' feet, we throw it against an object or a wall behind them and it splashes and hits them from the back. It's kind of like you kind of have to see the visual from the video to get it better.
Lets you cheat Reinhardt shields. If they're holding the shield, you throw it above them and behind them, and so they're still purple.
Exactly. So that's that video is also a great resource. I have a couple of old VOD reviews where I reviewed my Ana gameplay, which you can also see as well. And the channel's at KarQ Games on YouTube. Or just search up KarQ, KarQ, and KarQ Ana or something on YouTube search, and they should pop up now. So
sweet.
Those are some Ana resources. Yep.
Please go check these out. I've actually watched all of these videos. At least once, if not twice. The grenade spots is a little tricky to remember them all. And just keep in mind, if you don't do it perfect, sometimes they're actually quite off from where the grenades are supposed to be. And remember that some of them are kind of outdated and some of them kind of use their usefulness if you're like not really engaged in a fight. It's more of like kind of a setup type of a thing. So if you have time to set up, this is when you want to use those.
Yeah, those are more advanced tactics, but nevertheless very helpful to get people off guard,
It's super interesting, and it's just like one of those things where like you sit in custom games, you're like, where can I hit this from here? You know what I mean? Like those are the type of questions that people are doing with all kinds of stuff. Let's do a quick word from our sponsors real quick, and we'll talk and close out the show with talking about World Cup some more. From our diamond sponsors on patreon.com/OmnicLab. This is the best way you can support us financially and helping us get to BlizzCon, especially for me. It's been a really crazy year for us on Omnic Lab, and our Patreon is Andres and I have been talking again. We're gonna try to revamp this a little bit more. We're gonna talk some more at BlizzCon, especially, and try to like reform a lot of this. So please, we're taking any and all feedback from you guys on how to improve this. What is something that you would say, this is what I'm looking for from my creators? How can we provide that for you? And what would push you over the edge to consider donating just a little bit of your money or maybe a little bit of your time in helping us out financially to improve the show? We would greatly appreciate those. And we have some people to thank at our diamond sponsorship level at the top. We have Ben K, Britmus, Chris DePlaya, Durandal, Jan Jankel, Lissam, Mr. Mars, Roger B, Ricky Ticky, Shazir, Terry F, Timothy W, Top Score Solutions, and Tragic Zach. Thank you guys so much for your support each and every month. It means the world to us, especially to me, because BlizzCon tickets ain't cheap. Plane tickets ain't cheap, and they are way more expensive from Japan than they are from the continental U.S., let me tell you. So it really is just an amazing thing. But let's talk about Overwatch League. Sorry, not Overwatch League. Overwatch World Cup. now that you've kind of been in and out of scrims and maintaining schedules and kind of helping out with a team, I know that you're not a coach, but you are a community lead. And so I wanted to kind of get your maybe a little peek behind the curtain as like what is some things that are just like kind of blew your mind, some things that were just like this is not what I expected at all in a good way or in a bad way, something like that.
Um, I think what I touched on at the beginning of the show was just the whole idea of seeing a competitive environment with such great players that I've, watched their streams and looked up to for the longest time, right? And to name the few, XQC, Sure4, Agility, they're all just fantastic players, and I look up to their play styles and how they work as a team when it's not just, matchmaking and solo queue. The dynamic is night and day. There's such a clear difference on the way they speak and the way they approach the game. I think that's like the biggest take I've had so far. Not exclusive to being a community lead, just being part of the team and being part of the environment and just seeing how they work has just been so inspiring. In terms of just like general stuff, honestly, nothing too out of the ordinary. I guess the one thing I do want to say is when I went to the group stages as a community lead and I talked to the other countries' community leads, we actually weren't allowed to film or do anything. Like we're film or
Whoa.
take any
Oh,
photos.
they're strict with
So
that
then,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, they're very careful with the stuff in the studio they're at. So then I looked at the other community leads and we all looked at each other like, okay, so what do we do? I mean,
Yeah,
relatively speaking,
exactly.
we were brought on, like, this is the first year they did community lead for the World Cup. Last year they
Right.
didn't have these kind of roles or categories. So again, like I said earlier, there's no clear, rule or definition on what we had to do. But for the most part, we all kind of understood that we're there to kind of be that contact point between the community and the team and make sure that people know what we're up to and follow us. And we're a very marketable and ideal kind of looking team. I guess that's the kind of approach that everybody kind of took. And as soon as we went there and we weren't allowed to do a lot of stuff, it's like, okay. Of course, for me, I had the benefit of being able to, participate, sit in on scrims, and provide value in that sense. But I can't say the same for some of the other community leads. Some people were generally community players, but maybe they didn't, you know, they're just like your
Sure.
average player, maybe. And I just, not to like be rude or anything, but sometimes like the game is played at a different level, and it might be a little bit out of the scope of understanding a little bit, and
Yeah, that happens.
Right. And like not necessarily like community leads don't necessarily have to be GM players that are like excellent at the game, right? They
Of
just need
course,
to
of course.
they just
Yeah.
need to have an understanding of the game and then like how the team wants to communicate to the community. That's their main factor. It is a huge bonus that you are actually quite good at the game and can interact with the team in that
Mhm.
sense.
That's
So
it
that
specifically. Yeah.
that being said, I'm actually curious. For those of you who don't know, we're going into the last 8 teams, I believe, right? Going into
Yeah.
BlizzCon,
Finally,
Yep.
yeah.
the final
Not only
eight.
countries.
Canada is one of the countries that has qualified, as well as South Korea, the U.S., United Kingdom, France. I believe France is the ones that you guys are facing next, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about that because all of these teams that have qualified are heavily stacked with Overwatch League players. They have a lot of the best talent that is out there right now. And I'm actually curious. Canada is looking really good, but what do you think are the strengths of the Canada team right now going in against some of these other giants?
I honestly think our team play experience, like this is not the first time around this is like Sure4's third straight World Cup. This is like
Oh yeah, it
almost
is.
every player, every agilities as well. I think this is every player here has been through it. I think when I went on stage, like when I was like up there and just seeing a crowd and seeing that environment, I could tell if this is my first time, I may be a little nervous potentially, and
Sure.
psychologically, like that could have an effect on your gameplay. But it's not the first rodeo for these guys. It's not even the same rodeo. It's not the first rodeo for a lot of the
Well,
French
it's
players
their
too. Don't
job
get me
now
wrong.
for some of these guys. This is what they do all year long.
Exactly. They're so
Yeah.
used to it, and I mean, I think one of the biggest strengths, of course, is our experience as a team. And these players have played with each other for the most part. Like more than half these players played with each other in the previous World Cups. They know what
Right.
they're like, and that kind of team bond and synergy is very important to coming out as a victor in these kinds of situations. Like even outside of game, like everybody's so friendly and they love each other, and we're all just like having a good time at the same time. So it's the environment and the experience is probably one of the biggest factors in our success as well, in game and out of game. And I
I
think
would
that's
say,
our
I
backbone.
think that what Andres brought up about the experience of just being in front of crowds and just the fact that people are playing at the highest level of play in Overwatch League is one of the things that people like go straight to. It's like, oh well, they're just the highest level skill. It's like, well, yeah, but they also have some of the most on stage in front of a crowd on LAN experience of any of these teams, especially the ones that are building not just Overwatch League talent, but players who have also experienced the aspects of what BlizzCon's like and what the last 1 or 2 years of World Cup is like. And those two things are not anything to bat an eye at, even if they may not be the #1 draft pick type of a player overall, even because obviously some of the rosters had a real rough time even having any representation in the Overwatch League, let alone
Yeah.
for their teams. So
Uh,
it's been really cool to kind of see Team Canada, Team Finland, players that have lots of representation outside of the ones that people always go to in America because they're always like, oh, well, we have to follow our country, or the South Koreans are always crazy strong because they just won the last two.
yeah.
Looking at the other teams out there that have that representation is very, very interesting.
I
It
agree
does.
with that.
It does seem like this year, a lot of the top teams, a lot of the top 8 qualifying teams, are even in skill. I think that there's still some teams that
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
definitely tell are a little better than others. But I would say there's at least a top 4 in there that it's anyone's game at this point. Like past years, it was South Korea is probably gonna win it, but this year is, I don't know, it's kind of
Yeah,
dubious in there.
I think
Seems
that I
really
think
competitive.
the playing field leveled out as soon as Overwatch League started and the Koreans came over, and
Mhm.
teams had to evolve in order to, you saw at the beginning, I think, who was NYXL was just, doing so
Dominating.
well, dominating the Korean teams. But then, like, as the stages progress, you could see like the progression of some of the teams. We saw like Boston Uprising start popping off. We saw Philadelphia start playing really well as well.
Mm-hmm.
With a mixture of players from different countries as well, not a strictly all Korean team like NYXL or London Spitfire, who were
Mm.
dominating for a long time. Um, you could see like the playing field started leveling out once teams got the experience of playing with each other so much, scrimming with each
Right.
other. Um, Again, the playing field's leveled out. I think it could be anybody, not just South Korea this year. We've got some talented players from all over the world, and
Are you what do you think about
excited.
going in towards or versing France first? France is also looking
Yeah.
quite
France is
strong.
also very good. I did mention experience, but like we look at the French roster, and a lot of them are also
They
Overwatch League players as
yeah,
well.
they got it too.
Yeah, Anko, Poco, AKM, soon. They got a bunch of talented, experienced players, and it'll be tough. It'll be tough, but I think the difference will be preparation. I think we've got a great coaching staff. We've got, not only the ones you see, like you obviously Jane as the head coach as he was
Yeah.
like voted in, but we have a complete staff. Our assistant coach is Renan Thera, and he's like the head coach for Florida Mayhem Academy. Jane, as soon as Jane got nominated, he reached out to all the other candidates and asked for help from an analyst and other assistant coaches. We've got Renan Thera, we've got Sword, who's another assistant head coach. We've got Danny, who
Mhm.
just got picked up for Atlanta for an analyst as well.
Okay.
We have so much support, and everybody's working together hard. We're recording all our scrims and VODs and everything, and we're doing our best to make this a full team effort and winning. And I think that may be the separating factor. And like I don't know what the French are doing in terms of preparation and their staff or
Mhm.
whatever, but I think we have a great head start with what we've got so far.
Yeah, we don't want to reveal secrets because it's like really hard to kind of look at this outside of being retrospect, and then you gotta have to protect what's going on next year because you don't know what's gonna happen then either. So I really appreciate you kind of tiptoeing the line and like trying to help us get a little peek behind the curtain, but not too much. I know it's really hard with a lot of that, and being a community lead definitely um, is a good way to bridge that gap. And so we're looking forward to seeing
I'm
you
looking
at
forward to it.
BlizzCon and all of
Yeah.
the Team Canada folk. And I know that just having XQC in any realm is going to have lots of fanship around it,
Yeah.
just because of how big he is on Twitch and there's plenty of other big streamers there. But if you guys want to see it, it's going to be live streamed. This is not going to be gated on the virtual ticket. This is open forum esports that you guys can view. So don't worry too much about paying for it if you're looking for the virtual ticket. However, if you do get the virtual ticket, there's a pretty sweet Sombra skin in it for you. And you can get some other benefits if you play other Blizzard games, but they're slowly releasing those things. And Andres and I will be there, of course,
Oh,
to
I'll
hang
definitely be
out
there.
with.
I'm not gonna miss France versus Canada. Is that the first
This
match
is
of the entire thing?
Pardon me.
Is it going to be
is
the
that the
first
first
match?
I'm not sure if it's gonna be the first or second match. All I know is that we start Friday, November the 2nd. So I know
Okay.
BlizzCon's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I believe,
Right.
right? So it won't be on day one. It'll be day two. Friday for the the 8 teams to break it down to the final 2, and I believe the Saturday, the 3rd, will be the grand finals.
Yep.
And that will
Yeah.
be it. So
Yep.
stay tuned. Saturday, I don't know Friday, November 2nd. I don't know exactly what time it'll start. We'll say probably in the afternoon or early
Probably in the
morning.
afternoon.
Late morning or early afternoon Pacific time Friday. So if you're from Europe,
Rob and
evening
I will
time,
be at the venue
7.
cheering your hearts out. That's gonna be exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
gonna be great. So,
Yep, and it's also really really fun just to see that arena. It's not a large arena. It's a pretty medium sized one, but when you start packing it in, it feels like you're in a tin can. So it's like really loud, even though
Still like
it's
20,000 people. I wouldn't say it's a small arena either.
yeah, it's the
well.
same.
I mean,
It's the same venue as last year, right? It's this year.
Yeah.
It's the Anaheim Convention Center. So you've already been
I'm-
there. It's the exact same
I'm g-
thing. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I'm guessing it's the same place. Yeah.
it's no stadium. If I'm getting right at it, I'm
You
just
can just
saying.
like walk in. You can just
Okay.
walk in and sit down wherever you want, right? It's not you have a ticket and you have to sit at this seat, right? You're not like seat.
No,
you
you
know,
can
post
sit
one.
anywhere that it's not gated off for media and like whatever on the main floor. I think even the main floor has general ticketing each seasons, and lots of people just camp out. Like they're like, "Hey, I'm here for Overwatch. I'm gonna go watch esports all day. That's what I'm gonna do."
There's usually room
Okay.
for everyone right up until the finals. The finals fill up to the brim, and
And the
eventually,
U.S. Korea game.
yeah. If
Yeah,
you don't
like,
make
if
it there
you-
in time, you don't make it there. So just watch
Yeah,
out for
okay.
that.
Yeah, like if you walk out, you lose your seat or whatever.
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly.
okay, gotcha.
Unless you happen to be this guy I know named KarQ, who's a community lead, they'll probably just let you in.
I'll probably be in the back somewhere getting some
We're like,
VIP
yeah, just
access,
let him
but,
in.
Yeah. All right.
All right, guys.
Well.
Thanks so much for tuning in to episode 120. I think it's time to close the show. KarQ, let's kick it off with you. Where can people find you if they're looking for your stream, looking for you on YouTube, all that stuff?
On YouTube, I guess you could type youtube.com/KarQ Games or just search up KarQ on YouTube. Most people use a search function instead of typing full links these days. So just search up KarQ and you should find all the Overwatch videos, tips, tricks, all that good stuff, all on the channel there. For live streams, I'm on 5 days a week during the afternoon hours of North America. So, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Twitch.tv/KarQ, KarQ. And yeah, those are the 2 things I'm going to plug. Those are where you're going to find me for the most part.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks again for having me, guys. I appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, make sure to follow this man. He's doing a lot of the stuff for Overwatch community right now, especially with the World Cup coming up. He has an awesome video channel, very educational for Anna. So make sure to subscribe and stay in touch with him because he's always putting out some really good stuff.
And cheer from the rooftops for Canada, and you know who to find.
Right.
All right, Andres, tell people where they can find you.
You can find me over on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. And you can also find me talking about more Overwatch League over on Owl Recap with Bob and Mel. If you guys thought this conversation was cool and you want to hear more about how the World Cup unravels, make sure to tune in.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram with the tag NotRob. You can find me in our Discord at any time, and you can ping me there. Or Andres, we're more than willing to get back with you guys. I also do a Hearthstone podcast called Velen's Chosen, and I will be kind of dual representing, I guess you could say, at BlizzCon, but I will not be on the Hearthstone panel because it is hugely full, and Andres and I will be on the panel of World of Podcasts, and I will be the moderator. I can actually finally announce that here now. So I'll be moderating the event. Andres will be representing 2 shows, and I think almost every person on the Overwatch panel besides me is representing 2 or more shows within the Overwatch.
Too many Overwatch shows.
Channel. There's too many. There's too many, and not enough podcasters. So please show up. It's going to be around, I believe it's around 10 or 11 p.m. on Thursday. So that'll be November 1st. You guys can show up. You do not need a BlizzCon ticket to attend. You can just be there. It's in is it the Hilton
I think it's the
fourth
Hilton.
floor?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hilton fourth floor, and
So
just follow signs.
same place as the convention, just the day before. So if you guys arrive early and are looking for something to do, it's a great community to be a part of. All really good people. We're gonna be hanging around.
We're one of
so
the last panels.
Yeah, come hang out, talk to us, introduce yourselves, and just make some friends before the convention.
Buy me a pizza, because I don't get very many good pizzas here in Japan. So please buy me a pizza, buy me a burrito, something that's American.
Rob needs an injection of American food.
Just give me an American food IV. Just dump, I don't know, burgers in it or something. So we'll see you guys there. If you guys like Dungeons and Dragons or stuff like that, my wife and I do something on my other show called Concept Craft. Conceptcraft.libsyn.com is where you can find that. I actually put up an entire session that I DM'd just straight up out of my butt because I had no clue what I was doing. It's my first time, and it's called Honey Heist. You can check it out there. If you're looking for our show, Google Omnic Lab. You can find everything that you're looking for on our website, omniclab.com/links, including our merch and our Discord community. Thank you guys again. Remember, come to game night this week, and at the end of every month, KarQ, thanks again for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have our favorite Canadian on the show. And remember, guys, don't be a lab rat. Be a scientist. We'll see you guys next week. Adios. And music is slowly creeping in. There we go. We found it.
Thanks for everyone in the chat. You guys are super awesome. We got Fudgy Fuzz coming in for the first time.
That's such a great name.
Fudgy Fuzz.
Fudgy Fuzz. If you guys are on YouTube and you're still here, check out that like and subscribe button if you guys like stuff like this. Helps us out.
I have nothing more to teach you. The rest you must learn for yourself. Walk in harmony, my student.
Kilwa.